Dear colleagues, we're going to continue with the interviews. Please invite our next candidate, Олександр Стародубцев. Yes, please. Do come in. Good afternoon, Alexander. We are happy to see you here. You can see that all of the 6 commissioners are present. 3 are online, 3 are live. And now we'll hand it over to Laura Stefan, who is the main rapporteur in your case. Please, over to you, Laura.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and we would like to apologize, first of all, for starting this interview much later than it was initially scheduled. So thank you for your patience, Mr. Starodubcev. I'll start quickly with the first question. In your declaration for 2019, you have stated that you have received a fee of approximately 300 euros from the political party Servant of the People. Can you please explain to us what is the purpose of this fee, this income, and what kind of services were delivered by you to the political party to justify the payment of this fee?
Thank you so much, Laura, for the question. Honestly, could you repeat the sum, please? 300?
It's 8,512 hryvnias. So it's approximately 300 euros. The question
300 euros.
Beyond, the size, the question is, what was the interaction with the political party for which you received this amount? And please answer in Ukrainian. It's fine. We have translation.
Як зручніше? Українською?
Я думаю, українською, щоб для широкого загалу було так.
I think that since a lot of people are listening to us, it would be better if you speak Ukrainian. We have interpretation. What was the name of the...
Тоді я думаю, що я був, якщо...
Then I believe, well, there was a strategic session in Truskavets when the deputies from the Servant of the People have only been selected. And I was very actively engaged in the reform of the civil service. That's my dream. I know I have ideas what has to be done. I called Timofey Milovanov, who was organizing that from the Kyiv School of Economics, and asked to be invited because I said I was ready to speak, to organize something. I just needed 30 minutes to speak in front of the deputies because I wanted to talk about the reform of the civil service. It's a difficult reform and the messages have to be made clear from the very beginning. And I think this is the money that was paid to me for my speech in Truskavets. I don't have any other possible explanations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Moving to the next question. The next question refers to the place of residence for your daughter. So in 2023, in your declaration, you indicated that she resides in a room in Netherlands. Can you give us a little bit of details regarding her presence there? So when did she leave? On what grounds she has that the right to use the room? Also, why is she there and not at her place of regular residence?
Дякую за питання. Дружина з донькою
Thank you for the question. My wife and my daughter left the country after the full-scale invasion. They did quite some travel and ultimately they ended up in the Netherlands because my son studies in the Netherlands. He started his studies there before the full-scale invasion. And basically, well, it's a room. It's a room in a building in a small Dutch place where rooms are rented to students. My son rents this room and my daughter lives with her brother. So this is quite a simple story.
Okay, so you say that they live together, your son and your daughter, because our next question was about your son. In the declaration for 2022, you still list him in the declaration, though he departed Ukraine since January 2022. And we wanted to understand better and for you to provide us explanation as to why you didn't declare your actual place of residence for your son, and why you're still indicating him in your declaration of assets as a family member, although you don't seem to be living together, right? Because he's in a different country.
Окей, дякую за питання. Історія
Thank you for the question. The story is very simple. Too, my son was enrolled with a Dutch university. Initially, they were studying online, so he was in Ukraine. At the same time, he was enrolled in Kyiv-Mohyla University and tried to do both, and ultimately he ended up only being the student of the Dutch university. Before the invasion, he went to the Netherlands. It's very difficult to find a place to live in this town, a room or something. He stayed with friends for some time. And then when the invasion happened and my wife and daughter went there, my wife and daughter were sheltered by other people. He lived with them for some time. And then when that room was available, he lives there, and his sister, my younger daughter, lived with him. It took me a while to realize whether I have to declare this room or I don't have to. I may be wrong, but as far as I understand, it was not needed to do that in the end of 2022 because it was in rent for less than 183 days. Again, it's a room, 8 or 10 square meters in a small place. They have a separate kitchen and bathroom and toilet are separate as well. It's just residence for students in a student's town. I listed my son in the declaration 2022. I shouldn't have done that because he was a separate household. He tries to earn some money and he found a good job in 2022 or 23. Yeah, so he started earning himself, but the money that we have with my wife is our savings for the education of our children. Some of that money was in the account of my son while my wife was opening the account for her in the Netherlands. So just to have all of these ends meet, I declared my elder son to show that amount of money that was in his account as the money that belonged to us. That's the explanation.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience as the head of the National Agency of Ukraine for Civil Service? We know that you spent a very short time there. So can you tell us more about your dismissal? Is that a political maneuver? Was it politically motivated according to you, or why did it happen?
Дякую за питання. Це було...
Thank you for the question. There is a good word that explains that in English. It was a remarkable event in my career. I was the head of that institution for 4 months. I think I was the first who was fired on the first day of the new government. I wrote the explanation. I think this was completely political, and it's okay with me. I do not have any quarrels or something. We met with Minivchinov once. He asked me about my priorities. I said what I was doing in terms of the reform of the state service and rebooting the state service. We had some ideas about grading, so that was our conversation. I never met him anymore as his subordinate. I met him on various occasions after that, in many conferences. He greeted me. Okay, so I think it's a political story. I think that the first government of Alexei Honcharuk It was this team that was getting into the government. I was affiliated with this team, which was more technocratic than political, and the new team came with their own ideas. And this trolling continues. Everyone says that I was fired on the provision that I made up myself, that you can fire a civil service servant quickly. We talked a lot about that under the reform of the civil service. I really have something to do with this provision. I was the first to be fired in that provision, and everybody told me, you see, you wanted to make life difficult for people, now you get it yourself. That you get it. That's the response.
Thank you very much.
You.
Yes. So in May 2020, you became the deputy head of NACP. And in May 2022, you accepted to be transferred to the position of deputy chief of staff of NACP. And as a result of this acceptance, you started working under the chief of staff, who is a former party member of the Party of Regions. You said in the response you gave to the commission that you accepted this voluntarily and that it was your own initiative. Do you want to comment about the perception that that gives on your performance in NACP? I mean, do you feel it's normal to have above you and to accept voluntarily this placement, to have above you a person that is politically connected in an agency that should be politically independent?
Дякую за питання. Ну, в моїй картині мислення, в моєму світогляді це...
In my worldview, this is okay. Position is not a goal. I'm not somebody who was in the civil service all his life. I came in civil service at the time of Prozoro after Maidan, so I had my goals, and in May 2022, Artem Sednik appeared. He left this head of NABU position, and I told Novikov that it's a perfect candidate to have him with an ACP. We always hunted good people to engage them with an ACP. Everything was, all the positions were taken. Presnikov hasn't gone. The other one as well was still there as deputy head. And I said I did not care what kind of position I could take. Deputy chief of staff was vacant. I said, okay, I could take it. The division of responsibilities meant that I was not doing a lot together with my nominal head. I did everything which was related to people in an ACP, integrity, HR, client support, and I just continued to do my job, all of the tasks that I needed to do, and formally my head was Igor Kohic, and in reality I continued to be a member of the general board with the same options. Well, the head of the secretariat being a member or ex-member of this or that party. On the one hand, our cooperation with Igor has always been okay, where he was responsible, technical maintenance, repairs, finance, and then he took over IT from me. Our relationship was constructive. He's oriented at results, and he did whatever was his mandate. On the other hand, if you're talking about, well, what happens in the wings and stuff, people with some very opposite worldviews, you can't find a better example than me and him and Igor. But Alexander Novikov, I think, followed the right logics when he wanted to have different people on the team, because it makes that sure that the team works well. So that would be my answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Starodubtsev. Thank you for your straight answers and for bearing with us for so long. No more questions from my side. If my colleagues have other questions, please feel free to intervene.
Добрий день чи вечір вже.
Good afternoon or good evening, I don't know. That can be my professional deviation, but I still like court proceedings and decisions. Sometimes you get so much from them, some interesting things that you would not otherwise see. Maybe you would not see that straight away. So question one. There is an old court decision according to which you had something with Credobank. Credobank wanted you to provide notarized copies of agreements for the 4 million of shares of the bank. Can you tell us the fate of these 4 million of shares? Sure, I will, happily. I come from the investment market. Before Maidan, all I did was in this sphere, investment market. I think I did a good career from back office to a managing partner of quite a large international company. I had a client who had shares of Credobank. Well, we are watched by the whole country. How do I put it so as I don't offend anyone? That is a Ukrainian spot of PKO BP, Polish. They have a percentage of shares, and 0.5% of shares was belonged to a lot of people. These people had some shares that was appropriate privatization, but Credobank had to add funds because, yes, they washed away all of the incomes. They had to do emissions because the bank was not profitable. It was not profitable because all of those shareholders tried to understand. Okay. We, let me say that, did not agree with the management policy. Once again, I was never an investor of Credobank. I was just a shareholder. I did not put my money into that. I had a package, my client had a larger package of shares. So we demanded that you do what you wish with your bank, but please buy our shares at the market value, the value which was before you started all of those things of yours with washing out your shares. And we spoke on the part of another 1,000 or 10 dozen of thousands of shareholders. We tried to convince the management, I meant with them in Ukraine, but unfortunately, they were very, well, how do I put it, dismissing the colleagues from our neighboring friendly country. And we did some PR moves, we collected signatures from other shareholders and tried to influence the bank. We put them to court and we lost the court procedure.
Акції не викупили. Я їх продав, ну, насправді ж.
Did they not buy back the shares? I sold them. It's another story. From the couch of Ukrainian declaration, you can't be a shareholder. You need to sell something. Now there is the legislation that allows you to have those bits and pieces. But before that, you did not, you could not have the share. Yeah, you know, Renat Akhmetov partners, if you have just a little bit of shares. But if you have just money on your bank accounts, you can do that. But you cannot give them for management because, you know, it starts from 100,000 hryvnia and it's also for a fee. There was not a normal market for these shares. It was a pain to sell them. I just sold them not to have them, not to be bugged about the shares in my declaration. I hope to correct this somehow so that Ukrainian declarants who we have 800,000 could be shareholders of Ukrainian companies and would not be considered Rinat Akhmedov's partners immediately. You want to ease the difficult fate of minority holders? Yes, definitely. The legislation was adopted later. I did not study it. I maybe get lost there. With the investment market, I indeed said goodbye to it 10 years ago by selling together with my partners the company. It happened in 2013, namely. You feel squeezed out on your own skin, and do you understand? Now it's not going to be a question about you, but it will be a question about your brother, I think. Give me a moment, if you allow. So, we have the following information. In the period between 1998 and 2023, the joint income for your brother was 1,860,864 hryvnia, as counted by the tax agency. There's also some income from business activities, 8,500. So it's not too impressive. And then, due to my professional deformation, we go to court decision section. And then the things start that I would like to hear your explanation about. So, situation number one, decision. Maybe it is worth writing down because it's quite interesting. Case 638, and so on and so forth. Your brother asked the court where he asks, it's not a joke, to take from someone the loan of 5 million something hryvnia, because a certain Holubkov has loaned from him money in dollars that he was to return until January 1st, 2015. There are also some other statements there. It's not quite that interesting. Another case, 643-12, and so on and so on and so on. I think it's a mistake in the registry. It says that BE sued the VE, the person with the same last name. But as far as I know, you have just one brother. Well, we don't have a VE, but I do have two cousins in addition to my brother. That must be a mistake, but there is also about a loan of 1 million, about 1.5 million, and it was a loan for $50,000 that was not returned. So there is a loan, and then there is interest and something else and something else. Now, 2019, 953, 21, 19. Boris asks the court to take the loan from Skulska. It is 1,900,000 and so on and so forth, plus annual interest. And the reason was the agreement for $77,000 to be loaned to her. There is the corresponding document. She did not give it back, and then the process. It's quite interesting. As far as I have noticed, in 2012, Boris gave Skulska the document that allowed her to buy land plots in Crimea in Alushta area. And there was also another I don't know if it's related to this or not, but at some point, just give me a moment, just the final case that I mentioned, and then you'll be able to tell your story from the police chronicles. We like it very much. There is one episode, just give me a second, that your brother bought some kind of a building, came there, identified two unknown persons living there, and asks for action to be taken. So what is it? And how can you explain this? I'm quite sure there must be some kind of an explanation. I'm very hopeful to hear it right now. It seems to me that unfortunately, you won't hear the explanation. Everything that you have told me right now, I've heard for the first time today. I gave written explanation that I'm not in touch with my brother for 7 years. I gave my mom's phone number. We are indeed not in touch. It's an old family story. I can, but I will not call him. I don't want to call him. He offended my mother very seriously. And if I were her, I would not talk to him either. But she's the mother. She decides. I'm not in touch with him, and I won't. That's all of his court cases. He's a businessman. He's always been a businessman. He has something in Crimea. That's news for me. If you call my mother, she might ask more. Unfortunately, I can't help the commission. If you ask, I don't know, many people who can recommend me, my friends, they've never seen my brother. They don't know what he looks like. And the fact that I'm not in touch with my brother and I don't talk to him, it's a rather well-known story, unfortunately. In my family, you can't choose a brother. Let's just think, I don't know, as statespeople. On the one hand, taking into account the way you're telling this story, I'm quite inclined to believe it. On the other hand, there is the law that identifies the circle of close people, and whether we want this or not, other brothers and sisters are included there. And the situation here, and the competition, and you on applying to become the head of the agency, and in your opinion, let's imagine we would switch places. What would you do if you were me in this situation? I think that in your place, I would do the same, and I would try to identify the details about my brother, to identify if there are risks. I don't see any risks for me being the head of the agency. My brother lives in Kharkiv. I come from Kharkiv, but since 2000, I've been living in Kyiv. Close person, well, you know, there can be a formally close person, but you don't talk to them. You can just ask, I don't know, you can collect references. I'm a rather humane and warm person. And in order to gain this attitude from me, you should have tried, and my brother has managed to do it. I don't have any kind of information how he pays his taxes, where he takes the money from, what he has in Crimea, really. I don't know, and I don't want to know. There are no risks for me being the head of the agency, objectively, in regards to my brother. We are not in touch. Can we theoretically think about a situation that you made peace and you started talking to each other? Again, theoretically, anything can happen, but for that, I don't know what he needs to do. He should start from really apologizing to our mother. I don't have any further questions. Thank you. Does anybody else in the commission have any questions? I see that seemingly they don't. Alexander, thank you for this interview. Thank you for having been sincere with us.
Мушу оголосити перерву
And now I must announce a break of 40 minutes. We will come back after 40 minutes So 5 minutes before 5.